Hello and welcome to Geekverse Sidequest, your weekly stop for video game news, reviews, and more here on the Geekverse Podcast Network. I'm your host, the Bethesda boy, Dylan Muss. I have with me the middle of Earth, Taylor Field. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Very, very great. It's a beautiful day, beautiful night. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm very excited for this episode too. We have a very random smattering of topics, which I feel like that was the case last week as well. And even looking at your beautiful thumbnails, as I always do, there's like just a tombstone with Starfield and Suicide Squad and like RIP delayed, and then like Birdo just like right beside that. Like the mix of tones is great. And then even last week, there was like Agent 47 in the bottom corner and then Kirby just like right above him. Like I'm loving the mix of wholesome and then just like, dark and more gritty stuff. So yeah, we have a very random mix of stuff today. We're going to talk about the new courses added to Mario Kart and some of the character stuff going on there. Both Starfield and Suicide Squad are getting delayed, and we got some more footage at least from Starfield. And then there was randomly just a couple very low-key showcases. There was a Capcom showcase. We're really just going to talk about Resident Evil, but there was a whole like 50 minutes worth of stuff there. And then this other publisher that I had never heard of called NACON, I think is how you pronounce it. They are the publisher that has Lord of the Rings Gollum, among other games. So we're going to talk about mostly Gollum, but I wanted to shout out a couple things quickly from that showcase as well. So just a lot of random things are happening in the world. It's a very exciting time. But just a few shout-outs before we get into it. Make sure to check out Patreon to get episodes early and ad-free. Right now, Sidequest, we got a lot of stuff going up there. What is it? So the Arcane retrospective is fully going off now. Arx Vitalis is up on the main feeds, but the second episode, Dark Messiah, is up there now. It's going to release on the main feeds later this week. And then Dishonored will be recorded this week. That'll go up pretty soon. And and then the other thing we got is John Wick Hex is going to be up. Well, it's already up on Patreon right now. That'll hit the main feeds probably this weekend as well. So just a ton of stuff going on over there. We just finished Last of Us. That show just finished last night. So go check out all our reviews going on over there. And Taylor, any other like shout outs from your end? Anything happening this week on the feeds that you want to mention?
Oh gosh. Off the top of my head, I mean, I think you pretty much covered it.
Sounds good. Okay, let's get right into it. I want to shout out one thing very quick, which is that it is now March. It was already like halfway through March. So that means that we are very close to Nintendo closing the eShops for both the Wii U and 3DS. So I'm going to shout this out the next couple weeks here to make sure for anyone who has those consoles, if you want to get anything digitally, now is the time to do it because that stuff is going to be gone. And then, I mean, you can always pirate it down the road, if you want to do that kind of thing. But if you're someone like me who doesn't really like to pirate things and you want to just get things while you can, now's the time to do it. I don't really know how to get Wii U games because it's like not on the like Nintendo eShop page, like where you buy Switch things, but the 3DS is. So I don't really know what's going on with Wii U, and I personally don't really care too much about buying any of those games. But I've been keeping a keen eye on the 3DS store, and right now there's a big sale for Capcom. They just put on like some Resident Evil games, all the Monster Hunter games. They're like 95% off. Like you get like Monster Hunter games for like $2 or something. Like all of them. What are the other ones? Like Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. And then all like a bunch of smaller games have deals as well. I'm gonna keep an eye. I'll show it if any other like publishers come out and do ones. It's very unlikely Nintendo will do anything. So if you want to get like Zelda's, Mario's, like some of those first party things, you could probably just get them right now. There's not really a reason to wait, in my opinion. Or you can go to like a local game store. I'm sure they'll have physical copies of some things too. Why not support them instead of Nintendo, who's closing down these shops? So just a quick shout out for me there. Go do that stuff if you care about that, which I know a lot of people don't, but some of you might forget. It's kind of a weird process how you buy things because the stores are not really functional. You have to buy things through the online store. It's a whole process, but you can look into that if you are interested. But with that, let's let's talk about Nintendo while we're here, and we'll talk about these Mario Kart courses. So Wave 4 just came out with it, the usual 2 Grand Prix, which come with 4 courses each. 1 brand new course, 3 from Tour, and then other ones just a mixed match from like, I don't know, Game Boy Advance, Wii, that kind of stuff. Taylor, did you have a chance to play these maps over the weekend, and what did you think?
Yes, definitely indulge in some of these. My wife is hugely a fan of Birdo, and so Birdo being the king
Nice.
was great. But
Mhm.
yeah, the maps right away, there are a couple that I honed in on that I really, really liked. And then there's one, you'll have to let me know which one is the new one, because again, to me, all these are relatively new.
Right.
But the one that they had, maybe I go as far as saying 2, felt pretty much like reskinned from previous packs.
Yeah.
And not to like
Yeah,
spoil it,
Mario
but-
Circuit is just like the most boring course of all time. Like if I never
Yeah.
have to play that again, I'm fine. That's a one and done. They always gotta. I think they feel the need to throw those in. I don't know if it's easier to do something like that, but I guess it's good to get some of those old school maps in there with like a HD revamp. But even like the design of the course itself is pretty bland. But the rest of them I think
Yeah.
are pretty great.
Some of them, I think I'm kind of done with just that regular cityscape, because we had like one of the first ones, Paris Promenade. That was great.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's maybe reoccurring, and we see it again and again and again in other versions. But then if
Yeah.
you have something like Yoshi's Island or my
Yeah,
favorite
Yoshi's
out of-
Island. That was the brand new one.
That was the brand new
Was
one?
not from 2 or
Okay.
anything. It was just a brand new map. So
Okay, I love that one. And DK Summit. Oh my god, I never played the Wii one, but going around DK Summit was so cool. Doing like the sides and like the,
yeah,
like,
that was a
snowboard
nostalgic
kind of
one
things.
for me. I was really happy to see that. There's only a couple like snowy maps. I really like that aesthetic too, so I was pretty happy to see that one get added in there. Yeah, so you're mentioning the city ones because you're right. I think maybe there's a bit of an imbalance because they are really trying to get all the tour maps. It seems like by the end of this DLC thing, I feel like all those tour ones, which are those city ones, will probably be in the game. It seems like they really want to do that, but I think you're right that in this pack, out of 8 courses, 3 of them were the city ones. You got the Amsterdam map, Bangkok, and Singapore. I do really like all of them. They all kind of have a similar design where you're going through like the second lap, you might like take a different turn. So you're using some of the same streets. Oftentimes you end up going like backwards through a place you went forwards previously. So I like the way they're all designed, and particularly for me, the Bangkok Rush map and Singapore Speedway. I just loved the aesthetic of those. I think Singapore's the one at nighttime possibly, and you're like going through these markets. You're going through like this kind of river through the middle. You go up on that building that's like it's like a yacht like on top of those buildings in Singapore, which is just crazy that even exists. But I really love those tour maps, and I'm glad they're all coming over. But I'm still just anxiously waiting. If they are going to add all of them, I'm excited because there is a Vancouver map, and I would love to see that. So I really, really hope we get that one added in there. At this pace, it seems like we will. I don't know how many are missing from Tour, but like, damn, they've already put like, I don't know, I feel like 10 from Tour alone. So I don't know how many maps that game has even.
A lot.
And then, what else? There was Waluigi Stadium was another very nostalgic one for me. I forget if that was Wii or another console. Maybe it was a GameCube one, actually. Was that from Double Dash?
It was GameCube, GCN.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Double Dash, you're right.
Yeah, so do you remember that one? Because you're I know you're a big GameCube guy. Are you a Double Dash guy?
I never had that one for GameCube.
You didn't own it? Yeah.
That's the one I never owned it. That was when I went to my aunt's house, played at my aunt's, my cousins, but never owned it. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that one, and I mean, well, I think they already added Waluigi Pinball like in the previous thing too.
Yes.
But I just whenever Waluigi gets some love, I'm into that because that guy, he needs it sometimes. And then the last one we didn't talk about was the Riverside Park, which is almost I don't know if that was supposed to be a Donkey Kong one, but it has that kind of vibe where it's the jungle and you're alongside this river and whatnot. But I really enjoyed this one. I don't know if this is my favorite like wave that they've done yet, but there is still some great courses in there. So that's all very exciting. But yeah, as you mentioned too, Birdo is added in here. So this is kind of a surprise because when they first announced this DLC, they said exclusively like, we're just adding courses to the game, and that's it, nothing else. But then out of nowhere, when they showed this off in the direct, you see Birdo popping off. It's like, okay, well, I guess they're adding at least a character now. And then I remember when that happened, you could like go back to that DLC page and it said more characters to come. So we knew, okay, they're going to add more, but like how many, just 1 or 2? But now we kind of have the answer, I think, because when you boot up the game now and you have the character select screen, you have Birdo in a new row. And in that row is, I think, 5 other question marks. So I'm guessing, I don't know how many waves we have left, but I'm guessing we'll get either 1 to 2 characters per wave for a total of 5 more added, which is pretty cool. That's a nice surprise. But I guess quickly to stay on Birdo, I love that they did the Shy Guy thing, the Yoshi thing, where there's 9 different color schemes. I feel like all these I've never seen before. Like I feel like I've never seen really Birdo. Maybe in Strikers, like Birdo's got like more of a purple tone at times. If it depends on your team color and stuff. But I really liked all these just wacky color combos from Birdo, and it's just a very fun racer. But I'm sure Madison is happy to play her favorite character now.
Oh yeah, she rocks the green Birdo with the
Nice.
yellow bow tie or
pony
bow tie, whatever.
Yeah, I was trying all the different ones just to see them. They're so cool. But Taylor, what do you think of these like 5 character slots? Do you have any predictions? It's hard because they already have fucking like Metal Mario and Pink Gold Peach, Baby Luigi. Like they have all the weirdos already. So it's like, man, who is not in this game? So do you have any predictions or wishes? Any other favorite Mario characters of yours that just aren't playable yet somehow?
Yeah, this is interesting because we got Splatoon, Legend of Zelda, we got Link, and then we have Animal Crossing characters.
Yes.
So on top of all the wacky ones, like you said, so I think there's probably, if we're talking Mario, we could see Pauline. I think she could pop in there.
I think there's a high chance of that. She was added as DLC to the Golf Super Rush, and I think Strikers
and
actually.
Strikers, yeah.
Yeah, and those are in the last like year and a half, both of those. So I feel like she's prime for like DLC lineups at this point. Obviously, this game came out before Mario Odyssey, even though she is an older character, but that's really when she came to fame, you could say. So I feel like that's a very high chance that we see Pauline added.
Yeah. And more DK family members. I think a Diddy Kong. I think that's
please.
like prime for this. So
yeah, he was in the Wii game, and I don't remember if he's been in any other ones, to be honest. But
was he not in Double Dash?
He might have been in Double. Yeah, it would make sense if they did the pairings in that. I feel like Donkey Kong and him would have been partners.
Yes. Yeah.
But once again, I actually didn't own Double Dash either, so I'm not as familiar with that. But I do remember in the Wii just playing tons of Diddy Kong, and yeah, once again, he was also added to Strikers as a DLC character. He's less and less in these kind of Mario crossover games, and I really want him to be in there because they've got like 8 Donkey Kong maps now in this thing and only 1 character to represent them all. So I feel like it is perfect timing for them to add Diddy Kong. I think the chances are pretty high. I don't know if I'm just feeling hopeful or something, but I really hope we see that guy added in there.
Mm-hmm.
Any other like Mario specific characters? Like I guess a Goomba could be like I don't think Goomba's in there. They have do they not have a basic Koopa? Because they have Dry Bones. I can't recall if you can actually just do a basic.
There's a basic Koopa, yeah.
Okay.
I
is there just like a
list
green
here.
shell one, or is there? Because sometimes they have like the Paratrooper with the red as well.
I don't. I think it's just the classic
Yeah.
green one. I don't think he's the Paratrooper one. I
So
mean, there
maybe they could do one of
be,
those.
like, what is his name? Prana, Petey Prana, the
Yeah,
Sunshine
okay.
Boss, because he's kind of like popped up in games too.
Yeah, he's been kind of in Smash over there. He was also a Strikers character from Charge. You could play as Petey Piranha, so that could be a good one. Well, I guess that may be a bit tricky because he's an item. I don't know if they really care about that.
Oh,
It's
that's
kind of
true.
well, it's maybe not exactly him, but it's like that same plant, you know.
What about Kamek?
Yeah, I think that's actually a really highly likely one as well, which would be cool. And because in the old games, like, because he was the camera guy, wasn't he, in like 64 and stuff like that?
Was he the camera guy? Or maybe I'm getting confused.
Or
with
no,
the
that's
two.
Lakitu. Lakitu is the camera guy, and he's already in there. But yeah, Kamek's like the mage guy, and also he's in the movie, right? So I feel like that could be actually a pretty good pairing as well. He might be a nice popular character, so he would be really cool. I would love to see his like move, like whenever you do a trick and just see what the kind of weird stuff he would do. That could be kind of fun. One thing I just hope there's no more fucking babies. I hate the Mario baby characters that drive me nuts. So I hope we don't get I hope we don't get any babies unless they're like the really weird ones. Like I remember the Dr. Mario like mobile game just had such a weird set of characters, and there was like a baby Dr. Wario or something like that.
Whoa.
And if it's that crazy, I'm down. But I don't need like baby Pauline or something like that. I mean, it'd be crazy if they added baby Pauline and not actual Pauline. And then, so I guess the other theory I've seen is that, as you mentioned on the character select screen, like that bottom row is pretty much all. That's where all those like third party characters are. That's where the Inklings are, Link, Animal Crossing, and then the Mii's are there as well, which you could say are not necessarily a Mario character. So it kind of seems like, okay, maybe there's like a perfect like one slot there for another third party character, and then the rest would be just like standard Mario characters. So I guess, have we talked about any of those? I guess Diddy Kong, I'm considering him a Mario character for this conversation. I feel like maybe like Zelda, get Link and Zelda could be interesting. Kirby, I feel like could be a great one. That would be really cool. Even Samus, like I feel like Nintendo's going hard on Metroid lately. They just did the remaster. They put Fusion up on the Game Boy Advance thing. And Prime 4 is hopefully just around the corner. So I could see Samus. Also, I don't know if this would be a popular pick, but Captain Falcon, like there is a couple F-Zero stages in the game. And I think the Blue Falcon is like one of the karts as well. So to add Captain Falcon would be really cool. And as a just diehard Melee fan and Captain Falcon fan, I would be super down for that. Though they might want to go with a more popular like Nintendo character.
That'd be fantastic. I have two questions. First question relating to the character. Do you ever foresee like a Pikachu being thrown in there?
Oh, man, that's a really good question, actually, just because of it's Nintendo, but it's not Nintendo as a Pokemon company kind of thing. Man, that would be sick if one of the waves was just like, here's Pikachu, here's like, I don't know, what would be like the most popular Pokemon region, like a little map where you drive around one of the towns or something, like Pallet Town or something like that.
Oh,
that would be really, really cool. So, oh man, now you've got me like, you got my nerd chills going. I want to see that. Even though I'm not a huge Pokemon guy, I would love to see that. And you think about all the characters you could throw in that map too, like, like a Charizard battling a Squirtle or something on the side. Like, oh, that would be prime. That would be really, really cool. I'm going to say it's unlikely for me. I don't think they would do it. I think they would go for someone that they don't have to have a weird like crossover rights with, because they don't exclusively own oh my god, I said Pokemon. Pokemon, but I would be down to see that. You had two questions. What was the other question?
Yeah, the other question was, with the new maps, new characters, are we gonna see new items being thrown in here?
I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's any items from the previous games that are not in this thing. Like, has there ever been like a giant mushroom, or I'm trying to think, because I feel like each game usually has like maybe one or two quirky items. Maybe not the earlier ones, but like the Wii version or 3DS even. So I'm trying to think if there's been any items that are just not in the game that have been in previous ones. And if that's the case, like I could see them adding it. I don't know if they care about that though. Like I even think about Smash Bros. Not that it's a direct 1-to-1, but Smash Bros. Always added stages, always new characters, but it never added new items. It's like I don't know if people care enough about that. Maybe Mario Kart might be a bit different, because Smash, a lot of people just turn items off, whereas in Kart, I feel like very few, like you can do that, I think, but I don't think most people do that. Obviously, online is set to always have items on as well. One thing that they did though, which was kind of like a quiet just update, was with one of the waves, I think it was maybe wave 2, is they made it so like the question mark blocks, and maybe you've noticed this but just didn't like actively think about it, but the question mark blocks, when you pick it up, it like instantly refreshes now, rather than before it was like a 10-second timer and then new ones come in. Like they changed that, and I even saw there was some like kind of unofficial patch notes for this, but just like most of the roster got just like a speed boost, so the game's just like a little bit faster now across the board, generally speaking, like certain karts and characters and whatnot. So they are like quietly adding other things, but I also don't know, like in a Nintendo Direct, the way like they can actually just drop a clip of Birdo and people get hyped about that. I don't know if they show like a purple shell and people go, oh shit, purple shell. So I don't know, but I guess also compared to some other things, those could be like very easy to add relative to how much work it is to make a stage, to make a character with animations. Like just if it's a new shell or like something basic like that, I feel like they could easily do that. But what do you think? What is your chance? What is your percent chance that they do something like that?
Well, where we're at now, I think that there's a good chance of it happening, because I am
Can you
the
think of
kind
an
guy,
item that either is like a big Nintendo thing, or an item that you haven't seen yet?
the POW block. I'm not sure if that's from like previous Mario Kart iterations. I saw online there was something about like a Bowser shell too.
Yeah, I feel like that might be like a thing in battle mode or something. Like, cause isn't there a power block where you can like it goes on your head and then if you like bonk into someone, it like transfers them to them? Or I know that like that's how the lightning bolt thing works. So also some of these items I'm so fogging. Not to brag, but usually I'm like in the higher. Yeah, I don't usually go below like fifth place or anything like that, and that's where you get like most of the interesting items. I only ever just see like bananas and the odd like red shell. So there's even some that I don't even know how they work exactly. Like, I fell back in a race when we were doing these new maps, and I got like a boomerang. I'm like, totally forgot this was even in the game. I feel like I haven't seen this boomerang in years, but yeah, that's a good one. When you said it, it's like, man, this feels like something I've seen in Mario Kart before. I can't picture which one, but that would be a pretty cool addition.
Like I been holding out for a long time for Mario Kart 9. Ages. I've been talking about it with you guys for a long period of time, and now finally, I caved. Last year on Mario Day, I bought Mario Kart 8. It was on sale, and specifically because, okay, we got the booster course. That was what tipped me over the edge. I thought, okay, just the maps, that'll tie me over, though. But yeah, getting the new characters now, a whole bunch of these maps, and I do feel like there's that high chance that we could get new items just slid right into the game.
Yeah.
And the fact that they are upscaling a few things, and just the idea alone that this game is however old now and we got a new character put in just blows my mind instead of getting a brand new Mario Kart game. I'm really, really getting happy with this. Like, it's definitely worth the money.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to ruin. Obviously, you are happy now with this, but yeah, I feel like Mario Kart 9. Like, I don't like it. Might honestly be done. I just don't think they care to release it right now. Obviously, keep selling this thing. The DLC is now just probably a big seller, but also a huge reason why people get Nintendo Switch Online, because you can get the booster pass like through owning that. So I feel like they don't really in a hurry. Like, I honestly think there's a chance that they do like more waves after this. They said this is going to be it, and it's like 48 courses. So it's like, well, I would not expect more. That's already like double what the base game had. And the base game is already more than the Wii U version had. But yeah, I could totally see them doing another wave of this, like more characters. Maybe they try to get more in the third-party stuff and just make this like the Smash Bros. Ultimate of Mario Kart, which it already kind of is at this point, but just like even dipped deeper into that. But I was even looking into this recently, just looking at like, because I'm going to do like a ranking of all the Mario games that I've played, and I was looking at just all the Mario Karts that existed, and I was like kind of surprised that there's only 8. I'm like, man, I feel like there should be more. Like, if you compare to like how many just Mario games it is, or even, I guess most of the sports games, there's not too many iterations. But the way when I was looking at it is like, okay, I guess essentially every console and handheld has had just like one Mario Kart on it. They've never doubled up on a console. And the Switch is kind of a weird case where it's like the Wii U version, but then they just like throw the deluxe tag on there, and they've added new content. So it almost feels like a new game in a way. But I also think just looking at that kind of theory element of it, I think they're like, okay, we already have one Mario Kart on the Switch. There's not the fact that it is an amazing, huge one is also a good point. But like, even if it wasn't, I don't think they would necessarily want to push a second one on this one console. And obviously now they're just dipping back into the well of this one, which is crazy that they even announced that, right? It was years after the game came out, which was already years after the original came out, and then they like did the DLC thing. So obviously it's still selling, and even like they have a Mario Switch bundle that you can get that they're doing in conjunction with the movie. And you can like pick one of 3 games. Like, you don't get 3 games, which is classic Nintendo. It's like, why not do this bundle and give people a bunch of things? But anyway, and like, of course, one of them is Mario Kart. So they're still like pushing that in like this new Switch SKU. Yeah, get Mario Kart. That's really like their movie tie-in, is like, instead of actually having a new Mario ready to go, just Mario Kart. And that's totally fine, because obviously there's a big Mario Kart sequence in that movie and whatnot. But yeah, it's really interesting to see where we're at with this series. And going back to the characters, I had one last one to shout out, which was that very randomly on the DS, on Mario Kart DS, Rob, Rob like from Smash, like the robot, he was one of the playable characters. No idea why. It's so weird. But if they're doing that Smash Ultimate effect, I can't think of any other Mario characters that would be in a previous game that are missing other than Diddy Kong and Rob. I would love, if anyone can think of any other ones, point them out, send them my way. I'm so curious. But those are the only 2 I can think of. And I remember really liking Rob, probably just because it was such a weird pick. There's only like 9 characters in that game or something. Like, one of them was Rob. I was like, this is such a bizarre choice. But I like that they have kind of some random characters in there too. So, any other thoughts on this Mario Kart DLC?
I just find it interesting, like you said, like Birdo, like they weren't gonna add more characters, and then Birdo just pops up like, hey, we're putting characters in. I feel like one of the devs just one day, like they're working on the maps, and maybe a dev is like, oh, I'm just gonna, kick back for another hour on a Friday night and just make a Birdo character and we'll throw it in, or like present it to my boss. The boss like, oh yeah, let's just throw characters in or something. It just seems so nonchalant, and
I could almost see it being a case where they're doing what you're saying. If there's like kicking back after a long week, they're like, okay, let's just play around, like have a beer. And then someone went to pick Birdo, and they're like, wait, Birdo's not in this thing. We got to get on it. Let's make Birdo all of a sudden. So it could be, who knows? Who knows why they decided to do this randomly in the middle of this wave. It's very weird. The marketing for this thing could have been even so much cleaner if like each pack comes with a new character. It's just weird Nintendo stuff. With that, let's take our first break. We'll be right back, and then we're going to be talking about Starfield. We are back. So there's been a lot of rumblings after that Xbox showcase, or the developer direct, I think is what they called it, that me and you covered, Taylor, about a month ago now. Soon after that, Xbox said, okay, we're going to do something on Starfield soon. They just said soon. Who knows what that means? But people were kind of expecting probably just a direct for Starfield in the next month or two. That didn't really end up happening. Instead, they dropped this short video last week, which is about maybe 5 minutes long. It started out with a bit of I'm going to say a teaser trailer, because it was kind of this weird little thing. They dropped the release date of September 6th of 2023. And then Todd Howard came out, and he was just talking very briefly about the game, saying it's going well. He's excited to share it with us all. And then he said that we are doing a Starfield Direct on June 11th. Xbox then announced later on that that's when they're doing their like regular direct as well. So there's going to be the Starfield Direct along with like the regular Xbox showcase that they do every summer. So we'll talk more about that element of it in a second. But yeah, just what is your first impression on this release date? Of course, last year they said everything in this showcase is coming out in the next 12 months. And that was in June, and Starfield is now beyond that. So it's kind of breaking that. So that's why it's kind of a soft delay, because it didn't really have a date this time. But anyway, we can call it a delay for the sake of conversation. But yeah, what do you think of that date, first off?
September to me is that's when games are releasing. For me, like when I start easing into that fall season, this is when, okay, games are coming in, we're hunkering down indoors. This just kind of suits it for me. And I think September is like a good play, because within that 12-month period, wasn't it? It was November, right? Or at what point was it November?
It was supposed to be November 11th. It was supposed to be the classic Bethesda November 11th, and then they pushed it back like at the Summer Direct just to an unknown date. They just said, we're just delaying it. And then, yeah, they finally came out here and gave us the date and then announced the showcase. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think September's great. I really do. Again, like they're taking their time with it. It's still coming out 2023, so that's good. And I think Bethesda's track record with having games that are good, but a little bit wonky at times. Like I think this is the first like really big IP that they're putting out with Xbox or Microsoft, kind of like giving them their paychecks. So I think like there's different people like feeding information in, like, well, it's got to meet like this kind of level and degree first before we want to really feel comfortable putting it out there. So I think that has a big hand in this.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with the date. It's right now pretty an empty time. The only other thing that we really can kind of look at is that Sony has said that Spider-Man 2 is coming out in the fall, but even that doesn't have a set date. So these two could be going head to head, or I could see Sony now. I mean, Sony's so weird and petty with Xbox these days that I could see them just dropping at the same date and being like, fuck gamers. Like, we just want to do this to be annoying. But hopefully they see this as like, okay, we'll back off a bit. We'll let them have September. Because I think I feel like if Starfield goes up being Spider-Man, they're different platforms now, but I feel like Starfield would be the one that people would be more interested in, just because it's a bit more of an unknown quantity. We've been waiting a long time since Fallout 76, but even before that, Fallout 4 is like pretty old now. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with the date. I will say though, on like a personal level, I normally don't have things planned this far ahead, but there is a particular wedding I'm going to that exact weekend, and I'm involved in that wedding to an extent, so I'm probably not going to be able to play at all on launch weekend, so that's a slight bummer, but obviously that happens. But I mean, Starfield's not a game that you can play in a weekend anyway. I'll be playing that for years, so it doesn't matter if I play it in the first like 3 or 4 days. And then yeah, I hopefully everything stays away from it and it keeps that date. I still think there is a chance it actually gets moved back a little bit more. I'm feeling pretty solid that it stays of this year. But I think if push comes to shove, like they would push this thing to November and they'd have their happy November 11th date and stick to that. And people wouldn't be too salty because it's only like, okay, it's only only 2 months of a delay. So it's not too bad. But I think, to an extent, Bethesda's like walking on eggshells, right? After the disaster of Fallout 76, I think they saw how they weren't impenetrable. And like that one game, for a lot of people, ruined their reputation. And so I that's why they keep delaying this thing, in my opinion. And that's why it's been in development so long, is they've probably been finished this thing and are just squashing bugs for like a year at this point. And they just want this thing to come out, be in a really, really solid state. Thankfully, this doesn't have the multiplayer element. So hopefully there's less issues that could come up that like 76 had. But even just like the classic Bethesda bug, like all their games are buggy and crash and stuff on launch. They're known for that. And I think they really need to go away from that with this release date here. Before we talk about some of the imagery and we got like a little bit of footage here, let's talk like in terms of Xbox's year. I think there's a lot of people are talking about, okay, this game's going to be coming out in June. Obviously, that's not happening. And I think that's probably pretty good from Xbox's perspective. And even just in terms of the next few months, like next month, April, they have Minecraft Legends. That's going to be a big hit for them, or a big title. I don't know if it, remains to be seen if it's going to be a hit, but it's Minecraft, so it probably will be. And then Redfall in May, which is definitely more low-key, more niche, but it is still a big day one Game Pass from a first-party thing that they haven't really had since Forza or Halo, so that's been a while. And then June, it's not first-party yet because this Xbox acquisition with Activision's taking forever, but Diablo 4... that's when that comes out fully, is in June. And then there's less slots taken up in July and August. There's like Pikmin, but I don't think they need to worry about Pikmin necessarily. And then I'm sure other things will get dropped in the summer showcases, as they always do with the release dates. But I think it's kind of good for them to space out from Minecraft, space out from Redfall. I'm sure there'll be some other like Game Pass things that they mention at this showcase, like coming in the summer, coming in June. And then who knows? Maybe this Activision things goes through pretty soon, and then like somehow Diablo ends up on Game Pass. I feel like that's probably too quick for those deals to happen, but who knows? Maybe there's a chance. So I think that's pretty good. But I also think, to me, it seems like pretty intentional that they didn't just kick Starfield to November, which would almost make more sense for Bethesda specifically and give them a bit more time, get that big date. And I feel like it's maybe because September is dropping Starfield, and then November is something else, like for example Forza Motorsport. Where else is that going to come out? That could be another summer game, but then there may be bunching everything too much in the same like 4 or 5 month period. So do you think I'm onto something here? Is there a reason they go September here instead of November, and does that leave the calendar open for something else to come out either in that summer July August slot, or that kind of, I guess we'll say, November-ish slot?
I think it gives them room to work with, to be honest, because yeah, there's still stuff like, depending on deals going through and all that, like it gives them leeway to work with in the event that things kind of go their way, whether it's that acquisition deal or other titles that we don't even know if they do another direct, like, hey, we've got these games that will be available in like 2 months, because that seems to be the norm nowadays. It's like they do a direct or they do a reveal show, and then boom, this is immediately available on Games Pass, like day one, and like today or the month of. So it might be for overall a bigger picture that we just are not privy to.
And so with the announcement, then direct's coming June. Oh my God, I was combining July and June here. That's June 11th, and then so is the Xbox Showcase. Do you think it's a good idea for them to do those on the same day, or should they have like spaced those out in some way?
Which is coming out? Xbox Showcase, and then so you say the Direct for?
Yeah, like the Starfield Direct is the same day as that Xbox Showcase, but they are separate things as far as we know. So it's probably like, here's 30 minutes of Starfield, and then here's like 2 hours of like everything else. But it's in the same day. I don't know when. I don't think they have the time slots picked out yet of like 11 a.m., 2 p.m. or anything like that. They might just be back to back, and they're calling them two separate things. But yeah, it just felt a bit odd to me to do it the exact same day as the showcase. I don't know why. It just seemed odd.
I guess because you got press tuned in and like,
yeah, that's a good point.
Talking about it, I guess. I mean, it's just, why not make it all under one show.
Yeah, like
So-
embargo the journalists, like, articles and whatnot, all on
Mhm.
the same time frame and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, that could be that. What do you? This is like a very broad question. You could take this a million ways, but what do you expect to see in this Starfield Direct? We're not going to do the whole Xbox thing right now, but like with the way they set this up, what kind of? Is there any specific details you're kind of expecting to see from this showcase? So of course, we had the like 15-minute deep dive last year. I'm thinking this will probably be at least 20 minutes, up to 40. I'd say between 20 and 40 minutes is a pretty big range there. But yeah, what do you expect, or is there anything even you just really want to see? Is there any big questions you have that you want answered here?
I would like to just. I'd like to get more of a view of different planets. I guess that's probably like a
Yeah.
big thing. I'd like to see more different interaction with aliens and that sort of stuff, and just kind of like navigation wise.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's a big thing for me because now that we've kind of like cleared the air about the whole not flying to planets thing, which is
Yeah.
a
Yep.
huge bummer for me, but I
It
get
is,
it.
yeah.
I'd like to see more on that front. Now, I can't remember. There was obviously like setting up your ship, you can customize it and all that jazz. So
Mm-hmm.
there obviously is flying in orbit around planets and that sort of stuff, is there not?
Yeah, I think so, but it's unclear if you can like just land anywhere on a planet, or if there's like a set landing pad essentially that
Right.
you go to, or I'm sure bigger planets or bigger hub planets would have maybe multiple of these landing pads. Or yeah, it seems like you can't just like obviously you can't in real time fly down to the surface, but even like from the atmosphere, if you could look down and like pick a spot, that's something that's pretty unclear. And I think you make a good point. I would like to get some clarification on that. And I also do want to just hear like maybe a bit more detail on. They mentioned that 1,000 planets number. I want to hear more about how they achieve that number, in terms of like not sacrificing quality for quantity in this case, and some of their algorithms. Because not all of these planets are going to be handmade if they're doing that many, or maybe they are. They've been in development for a long time. But that's a big thing I want to be answered for sure. And a couple other things for me, I would love to see just. I'm sure we'll get like a classic. Here's like a 10-minute. Here's just 10 minutes of straight gameplay, like in a row. Here's what like a 10-minute sequence looks like. And I would love if part of that was like walking through a city. I really want to see how much interaction there is with different characters. I want to see how many like the buildings you can go into. Can you go in all of them, or is it just like you can go into a shop and an inn, and then the other things are just like blocked off, unmentioned? Because obviously that's a big thing for me with Elder Scrolls and stuff, is going to every building, but then Fallout's a bit different, where like half the buildings are just crumbled and you can't really like directly walk inside them. So I'm curious where they're going to land on that. You mentioned the customization. I would like to see. I don't know if I really need to see more about that, because I think they showed off enough of it. But I would like to see in terms of some of the customization for maybe the ship, particularly the planet stuff. I think I have my answers there for what I need, but it would be cool to see what kind of ship customizations you can make. Trying to think what else I feel like I really need to see. Maybe a little bit more talking about some of the RPG systems, the perks and stuff like that. In terms of building your character, is this game designed that you're just like, you build one character and your whole Starfield career, you just mess around with this one character? Or is it kind of more old school Bethesda, where you're kind of intended to make multiple characters and go different routes? I'm sure they'll do a big thing on the story as well. Here's the story hook, because we don't really have that yet. So yeah, I think those could be some things. Anything else that you hoping for?
Oh, no, I think at this point, like I need to get in there. I like what you said though about whether or not it's going to be multiple characters like classic style and just going different paths. I'm such a linear guy. Like I make my one character and I just try to do everything.
Right.
And if that's the case with Starfield, I'm going to most likely be trying to do that and just do a little bit of everything and just feel out what I gravitate to. We got to look at the skill trees and stuff, did we not? I'm trying to
In the
remember.
showcase, they scrolled through it for sure, and they talked about how you're getting skills, like you're picking perks in the classic style of like Fallout, but then you're also leveling up individual perks and abilities by using them. So that's a bit more of like an Elder Scrollsy kind of thing. So it seems like a bit of a hybrid between the systems. And from what we saw, like there's a lot of different skills and perks and stuff, but still a lot of them, even when they were scrolling through it, was like your gun does 15% more damage. So like I'm hoping we see a bit more like fun, unique things that are actually exciting to unlock instead of just like small percentage boosts. Although some of that is good as well for these hardcore RPG stuff. But yeah, hope we get more of a deep dive on that for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk a little bit more then about what we actually saw here. So it was not much. They first showed off kind of a trippy sequence that almost felt a bit to me like going into the black hole in Interstellar, like just, big ambiguous space imagery. It's pretty like the only way I can describe it. And then after that was like in the background, you could watch like some individual gameplay. But yeah, what did you think about that? The way it opened with just these large ambiguous black objects that are spinning around in circles. Did that do absolutely anything for you?
It honestly, I was getting Destiny vibes here.
Oh, interesting.
I
Okay.
feel like this is something, at least it felt familiar to me. Like we've seen this
Yeah.
before. So I'm very curious. Like, and then we get obviously like the castle and space and stuff. Like, okay, they're really like Elder
And
Scrolls
then your character
in
like
space.
floating into an orb or like a black hole or something weird like that.
Yeah, so I'm curious. I'm curious what all the symbolism means because there's a lot in this trailer with what they're showcasing. So yeah, like it felt a little bit of new, but then a little bit of familiarity, I would say as well. So
Yeah.
I like your mention of Interstellar. I think that's a good title to bring up when watching this.
Yeah. I mean, like, I also mean that in a bit of a disparaging way, though, where to me it's just like, it's so generic. Like, it really did absolutely nothing for me. And I think this could be something where this could be like a dream sequence thing. Like, maybe your character, like, I don't know, in certain story sequences, like, is envisioning this stuff. And that's like what's guiding you in some of your main quest things. It could be a thing even to, like, that could even just straight up be part of the opening cutscene of the game. Like, in Morrowind, there's kind of something like that where your character is having this really weird dream. You're seeing some strange imagery, some strange wording and stuff like that, and some, otherworldly voice is telling you some random exposition, whatnot. Then you wake up and then you go on your journey, and eventually some of that stuff actually makes sense. And so I kind of got a similar vibe in that way. I love Morrowind, but that's not necessarily why I love Morrowind. Is this weird, ambiguous opening cutscene that it had. So we'll see about that. But yeah, the line of dialogue was like, the eye is showing signs of another one of those big anomalies. So it seems like that's going to be a thing where just randomly when your character is born or just sometime when your character is a bit older is like these anomalies have started to show up and you're the one, whether it's a chosen one thing or not, I hope it's not. You're, being tasked with finding out what's going on here, going into it, whether it's because your character has a connection to it or because you're just the only one who's going to go through the time and effort of actually figuring out what it is. And then the other thing that seemed like slightly generic is just they had that eye imagery where obviously it was that circular thing, and then it's kind of panning out, and then it looks very much like an eye, but it's not directly an eye, and then it kind of fades out. But this idea has kind of been done, I feel like a lot, even in video games. Like, that's even just the kind of thing with No Man's Sky is that you're trying to find the center of the universe, and I kind of got that sort of energy to it. Outer Wilds has this thing where there's the eye of the universe, and there's different civilizations trying to track it down and understand it, and then it does stuff. And I won't spoil the narrative of that game, which is fantastic, and I really like that. But yeah, I guess I'm just getting some tropey feels from that trippy element. So that's why I guess, once again, hoping in that direct that we get some more information that is actually a bit of a hook on a story, or even just like, here, we're down in a planet, and we're going to show you what 15 minutes looks like, and some of the side quests look really fun, and here's a cool faction. That's really all I need. The main story has never been the main reason I come to these games, obviously. It's more the exploration, it's the weird side quests, like the Dark Brotherhood, and stuff like that, right? So that I don't necessarily need that, but I would like to be at least a bit more interested in the main story than I am right now. Because, yeah, the Fallout 4 main story I didn't really care much for it. Skyrim, I also didn't love that necessarily. So for me, they've been on a bit of a downward trend in terms of like what they choose to do for the main story. And I hope it's not a chosen one thing. Will remain to be seen. The other element was that kind of in the background when Todd Howard is talking is someone who's like playing the game in the background. And so obviously for most people, you probably wouldn't notice much. But I'm the Bethesda boy, so I, of course, like watched this multiple times and was like pausing and like looking around at all these different frames. And I got to say, just like on the gameplay element of it, it looked pretty fast and snappy, and you're moving around with your jetpack, and your character's sprinting around like pretty quick. Like this little combat sequence that you're doing looks pretty standard Bethesda like Fallout, but it looked like pretty fast paced and pretty solid in both like first person or third person, which of course these games are always a hybrid of the two. So I'm interested in that. We saw like some weird alien creatures, not necessarily humanoid alien creatures, but I don't think we've even really seen much like alien stuff at all. That was something I remember me and Kirkland were talking about. Is like, are all the humanoids going to be literally just like human beings, like people, or are they going to be like weird aliens? And we still haven't really seen those, to my knowledge. So we still didn't really. It was just like some weird like alien looking, like Alien the movie looking thing. So we'll see about that. And then there's definitely a quick shot where you can see like what seems to be like a human companion chasing you around, which is not a surprising thing, but I think to this point we only saw that one robot companion that you could have as part of your ship. I think he comes installed in your ship or something like that. So yeah, just some quick little hits. Like, game's looking solid. I am excited to see more. It looks a bit more colorful than that first showcase as well, though of course that's going to be planet to planet. But yeah, any takeaways from you? There's not much from the gameplay, but yeah, any takeaways?
Not necessarily. No, okay. I'm glad that you mentioned that in the backdrop, because I was just trying to like sneak in. It's like, oh, is there anything worth noting in the gameplay and behind Todd? But
yeah,
I like how you mentioned now not to go with like this chosen one complex for this. It made me think, okay, so obviously Skyrim has that, Oblivion has that. Morrowind, I do not remember. Now, when you mentioned Fallout in here, I wasn't sure if you were lauding that in there as well. Does Fallout 4 have that chosen one complex as well?
Yes and no. I mean, not in like the mythological sense that like Elder Scrolls does, right? That you're like some reborn creature of old or something like that. But like the fact that you're, slight spoilers for Fallout 4 here, that your dad is like the guy who like runs the institute, or you're not your dad, your son, who is like now older than you because of time dilation and stuff like that, is now like the guy who runs the institute, I think is what they call it in that game. And I don't know, just like something like that. So I think you're right. It's probably less in Fallout, more an Elder Scrolls trope that they tend to do there. And then Morrowind, once again, I'm always praising Morrowind, but what I love about that game is I feel like to me it's never really clear. It's always left ambiguous. You can choose to believe that if you want, that you were the chosen one and that's why all this worked. But you could also look at it that like, okay, the reason the prophecy worked is because I did all the steps and became like, I did all the things that a person has to do to be seen as who that chosen one kind of character is. So I really like the way that it's done in that game. I think it's maybe less tasteful in their later titles. But of course, I'm a fucking just Morrowind apologist, so that's always part of it too. Okay. With that, let's move on to our next delay, and this will probably be quicker because this isn't technically not confirmed yet, but the word is, and this is from like Bloomberg, I think, so pretty reputable source here, is that Suicide Squad killed the Justice League, which me and Travis just did a deep dive conversation on their showcase the other day. It seems like they are delaying the game due to fan backlash from seeing that footage. First of all, Taylor, did you watch that footage from Suicide Squad?
I did. I'm just going to squeeze through it right now real quick.
Yeah, you can have it on the side there, but pretty much most people, almost everyone was like not happy with it. It was just like, okay, here's a generic third-person shooter where you're shooting like orbs and stuff. Like, I don't know, it just looked quite generic. Not I don't know. I think the Suicide Squad was already not a great path for Rocksteady to go in terms of interest, but the trailer did not do any justice, and it was a ton of gameplay, bunch of story stuff, and it's like, okay, this was their chance to show it off, and it didn't really go well. And the game was supposed to come out in May, I think. Oh God, what the hell was it? Now was it May or I think it was supposed to be May.
Everyone's just using guns. That's
Yep. And there's a couple like King Shark does a big superhero landing explosion thing, but like, I mean, they're not really superheroes, I guess. So like, they're not really doing big superhero-y things, but it's like it's weird. It's not ideal, and the shooting also doesn't look good. Is what I was mentioning when me and Travis talked about. Is that yeah, even if it is just a third-person shooter, it doesn't really look that fun of one of those. Like, it's like Gotham Knights looks way better than this in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and this is supposed to be in the same universe as the Arkham games.
It is, yeah. Yep.
Weird. Yeah, it doesn't Doesn't feel like it. I
It's
feel
immediately
like
off-putting, right? Yeah.
It's like Apex Legends meets something else flamboyant, I guess.
Yeah, not really very DC. Yeah, it doesn't like scream DC. So anyway, yeah, it sounds like they might be delaying the game again, unambiguous to when, because it's once again not official, so they haven't said anything. It's really hard to say if this is a good move or not. It could be something where they delay the game and maybe not much actually changes, but when they do come back with a new release date, the footage that they show is a lot better. And hopefully it's not in a deceptive way, but it's just like, okay, we got off on the wrong foot, and let's show you what this game actually looks like. Let's show you again, and with knowing how people reacted to that first big showcase, they can cater the experience to be a bit more enticing. Maybe they have a really good story hook in there. If they do just delay it by a few months, it's hard to imagine them being able to change anything meaningful to the game, right? Like, maybe you could scoop out the always online feature. Maybe you could scoop out some of the upgrade perk gear system. Maybe you could take out some of the battle passy, live servicey element of it, but I don't think you can do all of that. And even for any one of those things, it's hard to imagine them really being able to change much that would, I think, drastically sway people back to be in favor of this. I think maybe the one thing they could do is, let's say they delay it. They talked about how they're going to add new characters down the road. Maybe they delay the game by a few months, and in that time they were going to have 2 new characters out. So now the game launches with 6 characters, and Joker is a playable character, and I don't know, Enchantress. I don't know who's another big Suicide Squad, like a popular Suicide Squad character. I don't know, but maybe they do, and maybe that helps people sell it on it. Is, oh wow, now there's 6 characters, or maybe now there's 8. Who knows how many they can get if they squeeze it back by a few months, or maybe if they push it into 2024. But that's kind of maybe one of my thoughts. Otherwise, I think it's a mistake. I think they should just get the game out already. It's been in development long enough. You're going to get an audience to some extent because it is Rocksteady, because DC has got a lot of fans out there, and maybe the reviews are actually pretty good and people check it out. And it's maybe not the huge smash hit, big live service game that's going to support the studio and the publisher for a million years like GTA 5. But maybe it's still a moderate success, and then Rocksteady can move on with their next project and hopefully scope it down, and it's a smaller scale project. Maybe they just do another Batman thing, or I think even maybe they just do a new IP, just work on something fresh and new for the studio. Could be a good way for them to go after what is potentially a messy launch of Suicide Squad. So those are my kind of messy thoughts. But yeah, what is your take on the delay now that you're seeing a bit of gameplay and kind of understanding the context of some of this?
Well, yeah. My last thought on this gameplay here, I immediately realized what this reminds me of, and I pulled up another screen just to look at the gameplay of this other game. This is early Crackdown, but DC-ified. When you look at Crackdown 3 and then the gameplay of this, it looks so similar, at least to me. So
no, it's not that you're wrong. It's just that Crackdown 1 is one of my favorite games of all time, and I love it so much. And then I don't care about this trailer, but I also don't even care about Crackdown 2 or 3. That just first one just hit at the perfect time for me, age-wise, and free time. I had so much free time to go get all those fucking agility orbs. But you're not wrong in a lot of ways, actually, because that game kind of has you're playing a super soldier kind of guy, and you can jump off buildings and do big superhero landings. You can pick up vehicles and throw them around and stuff. But the combat's not really great. It's more about the agility element, which, yeah, the more you mention it, there actually seems to be a lot of comparisons there in some ways. So that's interesting.
Yeah. But as far as the delay goes, I think that's interesting how everyone's hating on it, and yeah, okay, we're gonna delay it. So now, what are they delaying it for? Are they totally going to redo the combat? That sends a message. Yeah, good luck. That sends a message to the player base that you're really going to do something significant to the game if you're delaying it based on feedback from the community. So what can you do in this short a time that's going to fix the problem? Because if it's just the gameplay and all the characters have guns and stuff like that, that's, from what I could see, that's a pretty hefty overhaul.
Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on this. I'm very curious what happens with it, but unfortunately there's not really too much else on that right now. Before we get into the next thing, there's just a very random thought that popped in my head. Taylor, we talked about Tactics Arena Online a few weeks ago. One of my good friends who I used to play that game with, he messaged me recently and he's like, yo, there's like new servers for this thing and you can go play it right now. So
What?
I still haven't took him up on that because he's also in England, so the time difference is kind of savage for us to play games together. But that just reminded me about that, and I'll get the link for you because I forget what the new website's called. But we got to play some tactics on Arena Online here pretty soon. That would be a good session.
Absolutely. Yeah, do some old streaming sessions on Twitch
Yeah.
with that.
That'd be super fun. Okay, back into the regular schedule program. There was also, as I mentioned, that Capcom showcase. There's a lot of stuff in there, Street Fighter. What else? There's like maybe Monster Hunter. What other stuff does Capcom do? Oh, Mega Man Battle Network. That showcase was great. I'm definitely picking that game up, which I already was before, but big Battle Network fan. But they also showed off a little bit more of Resident Evil 4 Remake, which is coming out, I think, March 25th. It's the end of this month, the last, Thursday of the month. And with it, they also announced what they're calling the Chainsaw demo. And that's up on storefronts now, PlayStation, Xbox, wherever you are. You can download this thing and check it out, which they've been doing a lot of recently. I don't know if Capcom does this across the board, but at least for Resident Evil, I remember with Resident Evil Village, they actually did like a separate standalone little experience. It was like maybe an hour or two long, and it was almost like a little prequel to the game that you could play as a demo, and it was different from the main game. This, to what I understand, is just like a 20-second, or not 20-second, 20-minute segment of the game that's just demoified, so you can check it out. I did play this thing, so I'll jump right in talking about this. And very quick backstory is that I have not played tons of Resident Evil, and I've pretty much only played the second half of the series. I've played 5 a bunch, checked out some of 7, but it was too scary for me, and then I really loved Village. Still haven't gone back to the DLC, unfortunately. I've meant to do that. But these remakes have been really enticing for me, and Resident Evil 4, is kind of considered just one of those greatest games of all time things. And it's always been on my backlog, always wanted to get to it. And then with the remakes happening, I'm like, okay, Resident Evil 4 remake's bound to happen pretty soon here. So that seems like a pretty good time for me to jump in. So I will be picking it up and expect a review on the channel for that. I'm very excited to talk about this game. But yeah, I checked out the demo. I beat it in like 15 minutes, so it was pretty short and sweet. And it's great, like looks great, plays very much as you expect for Resident Evil. I obviously cannot comment on how much it matches that original game because I have not played it, but I gotta say, Taylor, in terms of a demo or even just an early segment of a game, I don't know if this is supposed to be the start of the game, it gets intense so quickly where like you walk around a house, you get introduced to combat, you like walk down this road, you fight like 2 or 3 enemies. Okay, cool. Like you understand the basics of combat. You walk into this town square, and there's literally like 30 enemies and a boss with a chainsaw. And it's like, what the fuck? The way they ratcheted this difficulty up is insane. So I fought off like 5 or 6 of them, eventually got like cornered and just got swarmed, ran out of ammo. I'm like, I don't know what to do if I don't have ammo in this game. You get like 5 shots and there's 30 enemies. What am I supposed to do here? So I got absolutely wrecked, which, felt great to an extent. And then I reloaded my save. I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll try that again, although I don't know what else I can try. But I cruised around a bit more, found some more ammo. I found like another grenade. The grenade was very helpful. And eventually you actually just have to fight them off long enough. And then there's like this bell that chimes, and then all the enemies stop fighting you, and then they just go back into this church. It's pretty scary. Yeah, it's very unsettling because like then these zombies are like walking right beside you, and they're like just, waltzing by and like not even biting you anymore and stuff like that. So it was really great tone piece, really intense. Seems like I guess this game's going to be a lot more combat heavy than what I got in Village, based on this one little demo here, which I'm excited for. Good horror mix, like action mix will seem pretty interesting. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and it just got even more excited for this thing. But yeah, have you played the original Resident Evil 4? And I don't know, what do you think of the footage that we got here?
Never played it. This is one that, out of all the Resident Evils, it has always been prominent for me in the sense where I'd go into EB Games and I'd always see it back in the days. GameCube games were sold there. And there was always a copy of Resident Evil 4 GameCube on the shelf. And I don't know why I never got into it. It's funny that you say they're more action heavy because that's definitely the tone that I took from them. looking at like gameplay and stuff like that, because the newer ones, I played 7, I haven't played Village, but they felt a lot more like you get weapons, but it's much more based on survival and just like
Yeah,
maybe
definitely.
like hide and just run around and stuff. But these ones, and I think Resident Evil 5 was the earliest one I played, and that one felt like a little bit more combat heavy.
Yeah, it's like not even a horror game. That's just
Yeah.
like an action third-person co-op shooter, which is crazy.
Yeah, so I just kind of like took it as like, okay, yeah, these older ones are much more kind of like a little bit more combat, scary stuff and everything in there. But yeah, Resident Evil 4 though, it's definitely on my playlist. I think it's on Games Pass, Resident Evil like 1 and a few of those other ones, and so it's on my list to play. But now I'm really tempted like with this one, but I haven't played the previous one. So am I wrong to jump in now with 4?
Well, I'm just gonna do a self plug here because I think the review will be good because I will be coming in completely blank, but the guest I have planned for that, assuming that works out, is like has played the original a bunch of times. So I think that'll be a good discussion to have of like a first time player versus like a super fan of it. So yeah, I'll tune in on that. But also like Village is really great, and I think if you like 7, it's different in terms of the horror elements and the way it's set up and whatnot. But I think you really enjoy that as well. But yeah, even to your point of like the different playstyles of it, I think it's pretty cool that Resident Evil is thriving as much as it is. I think Village was the best selling one in the series, so obviously that's great for them. But the fact that they can kind of do this half remake thing, or like really high fidelity remakes that are in the classic third person style, maybe more action heavy, alongside the first person more horror focused ones, and the fact that they can have these going parallel and like kind of one releases every year, it's like a really great space. I feel like this is kind of maybe the golden age of Resident Evil. Not that I'm a super fan and can make that declaration or anything, but it seems like a pretty great time to be checking these things out. And yeah, I mean, I liked 7. 7 was so good that I had to stop playing it because it was just too scary. And then Village, I really enjoyed. So now I'm just like all in. Like I really want to play these things as they're coming out from here on out. And I still do plan to go back to 2 and 3 remake, and then maybe even go back and check out some of the older ones that haven't been remade. But yeah, I'm really happy with this series right now. It's in a really cool spot.
Did you draft this in our video games draft?
Someone did, and I can go pull it up right now. It might have been me.
I feel like it was you. Yeah.
Let's check it out here.
I maybe think it could be Kirkland if it's not you, but
Well, I know Travis got Dead Space remake. My note's not loading. I'll check this out in a second, but I'm pretty sure I did scoop it up because I think this is maybe like my second round pick or something like that. Like it was pretty high up for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this demo's pretty short, so it's hard for me to, gauge what the number is going to be off of this thing. This Metacritic rating. It's not loading, but I'll keep an eye on that as we go through the show. Cool. Anything else on Resident Evil? Or should we move along here?
You can mosey on.
Okay, let's take our last ad break of the show. When we come back, we just have a couple more smaller trailers topics to get through, so we will be right back. We are back. I feel like this year I've barely talked about indie games, and I think that's just been partly there hasn't really been too much releasing. Season came out. I really want to check that out. March, there's a couple things coming out, so I'll probably be getting back and playing some indie games soon here. But I just haven't talked about many because I haven't really been playing many, and there hasn't been many announcements that have been too hot and heavy. But just this last week, they announced that Wargroove 2 is, I guess, I don't know, they didn't drop a date on it. I forget if it had 2023 in the trailer. They might have said this year. If not, it's probably a next year thing. It looks like it's pretty far along at this point. But yeah, I think the original Wargroove came out in 2018. For anyone who doesn't know, it is a strategy tactics game. It's very much inspired by Advance Wars in terms of, like, instead of Final Fantasy Tactics or Fire Emblem, it's very much in the Advance Wars style in terms of that gameplay of it. And it was more or less just a copycat of that, but it had its unique art style, and then it had some other cool features on top of that. And I really enjoyed the game. I actually did a review for it on the channel, although that's probably not in the feeds anymore. So maybe I'll circulate that back in when the second one's come out or something like that. But I really enjoyed the game. As a tactics fan, it was something different. I've never played Advance Wars, so it was cool to get a bit of that. There was like a really, really in-depth map, like campaign builder, not even just map builder, but like you could make full campaigns and stuff like that. It was really cool. I think we even did it on the Gauntlet once, now that I remember. Or at least we tried. I'm pretty sure Ruben and Tyler Briggs faced off, and there was like, it kept crashing or something. Like it was a disaster. I was really excited for it. Then it ended up being kind of a mess. But I think that did happen. So I don't know if that ever got released on YouTube because it might have just been an editing complete mess there. But I never had any issues with playing single player. It was just like apparently the multiplayer was bugged out in some way. So hopefully they fix that. Totally forgot about that until I just brought it up right now. But yeah, did you check out this trailer? And do you have any interest in this? I know you're not really a big indie game guy and not even really a tactics game guy, but anything do this, does this draw you in any way?
This drew me in. Yeah, it's
Oh,
just
okay.
the when I watched it earlier, there was a game that came to mind when I saw this. Oh, and for the life of me, I think I could remember.
Another
it now.
tactics game or another like pixel
It-
arty kind of
It
thing?
was another tactics game, and
Are you sure it's just not
gosh.
Advance Wars? Are you not just thinking about that?
No, it wasn't Advanced Wars. I wish I could remember it.
Wouldn't be XCOM, wouldn't be Midnight Suns, wouldn't be like Octopath or Triangle Strategy or
No. Oh god, that'll bug me. I'm sure it'll come.
Tactics
some point,
Arena
but-
Online.
Tactics Arena. There it is. But yeah, I think that again, like seeing this, it's like okay. You initially would think like, oh, maybe a little Fire Emblem-esque in there,
Mhm.
but I like this a lot, where you just get this map and okay, that's it. I have it's a mobile game called
Okay.
Polytopia, and it's just you pair up with other people and your friends and stuff like that. And basically, it's got like a map, and
Okay.
it's turn based. And again, the combat system is very different than
This looks like
than
Roller
this.
Coaster Tycoon. This Polytopia game,
Yeah.
kind of.
It's like turn based combat and stuff like that. But again, the combat that you see in Wargroove is very much like your Fire Emblem-esque kind of sort. And I like it. It's doing so many things right that I really like it. I wish I remembered the first one. But this is something that really piqued my interest, and I actually would kind of like to try it. It looks like a game that I could just pop on and just play like after work for a couple hours. I think that's my biggest difficulty these days as a gamer, is just trying to find that time. That's why Call of Duty just fits so nicely, because I can just get in, I can grind, and then hop off. And this seems like
Yeah.
that kind of a game. I can just boot it up and I can grind and just enjoy it for a few hours and then sign off. So
Yeah, it's weirdly in a way a bit of like Halo 3 was such an anomaly, and you even see this with like Halo Infinite, where they come out and like all these modes are coming out in like different months and years and stuff like that. But Halo 3, like at launch, had this full single player campaign and multiplayer and Forge. And that's kind of what Wargroove is in a bit of a way. It's like the indie version of that, where it has like that full single player campaign that's probably like 15 hours long or something. It's got like online multiplayer functionality, or, you know, like split screen multiplayer, which obviously is buggy, as I mentioned. But then it also has like, yeah, that full campaign builder, which is insane. That people were like recreating like literally campaigns from Fire Emblem, and like people were making like just RPGs, like JRPGs and stuff like that, like in this game. I remember someone made like a just recreation of Planet Earth, and I played on that map, and that was really cool. Like just such a and they even had like puzzles on top of that. It had like a puzzle mode where you, like it would set up these very specific challenges and stuff. So just like a really quite a big scope for what an indie game is. And like it makes sense. Like when I see this too, and I saw this trailer, I was like, man, now I understand why this thing has been in development for so long. And at least in the indie state of things, like this is a pretty long development cycle. If they assumingly started on this after Wargroove 1, which I think Wargroove 1 had a DLC pack or two, but yeah, like the visuals look even better. The scale looks bigger. Like they showed this one like kind of kingdom level with like this town area down below, and it's like, man, these maps look fantastic. It's got all that same stuff from that first game in terms of all those features. They've added like some new elements to the captain characters to make them a bit more interesting. And then the thing though that they said that my ears were really perked up for was they mentioned that they're adding like a roguelike mode to this as well. And one of my just now favorite games of all time, and one of my just favorite indie games, is Into the Breach, which is just a tactics, turn-based, grid tactics roguelike game. I love that game, and I still play over like 200 hours in it. I'm still just going back to the well on this thing over and over again. And so like just to add a Wargroove like roguelike mode in there is so cool, and I can't wait to see like what the roguelike functions are of that. As I said, how all those modes are fleshed out in that first game, I'm sure the roguelike will not just be like some cheap add-on. It will be very cool, and I guarantee it'll have like daily challenges and all of this like functionality in there, some sort of multiplayer element. And that's like super exciting for me. So yeah, I cannot wait for Wargroove 2. Check out the trailer for this thing, people, if you've not heard of it before. It's really cool. I think the first game was like $20-$30 or something, so it's a good price too for what you're getting there. I mean, I recommend go check out the first one too. You might as well go play that first. And yeah, so moving on to the next thing here. There was, I mentioned the Capcom showcase. There's also this NACON, I don't know how you pronounce it, showcase. So we'll talk about Gollum in a second, but a couple quick shoutouts for me was they showed off a couple other games. One was called Ravensmith. This is the new game from the developers that did Curse of the Dead Gods. I think that game was a roguelike that actually S-Bubs recommended to me in our Discord once upon a time, and I checked that out. It was on Game Pass at the time. It was really cool. And Ravensmith is the new game. It looks amazing in terms of the visuals of it, the mechanics, the different characters. It's like another roguelike that they're doing here. So it looked really cool. Go check that out. This horror game called Ad Infinitum. I don't know if you've heard about this one, Taylor, but the devs are like, oh yeah, we've been working on this thing for like 7 years or something like that, like an insane amount of time. And it looks insanely good. Like the visuals are crazy. The horror elements look pretty solid too. So that game looks very impressive. And then the last like quick hit was this game called War Hospital, which I am not into like the World War I, II setting. It's like doesn't really do it for me. And this game's like World War II setting, and it looks like almost like 2 Point Campus, but you just have this hospital in the middle of a war. So you got like all your military tents and like different supplies and stuff like this. Not a game that would normally call out to me, but I thought there was like a really interesting narrative element to it, and I like those kind of tycoon builder games. So that looked really cool as well. So I wanted to show these out because NACON, this publisher that I didn't know anything about, like this showcase that they did was actually really good. Like it was a very good pacing. Every game they showed off was like a really good showing mix of gameplay, story hooks, like didn't have too much blab blab. It was just really quick and to the point. So I was like really impressed by this. And now they're just immediately on my radar and going to see what they do in the future. And all these games they showed off, like pretty much all of them look really interesting to me. And now they're on my kind of wish list or to watch list and stuff like that. So part of this was they also showed off Lord of the Rings Gollum and Robocop, this Robocop game. So let's start on Gollum. This is a game that I've talked about a lot on Sidequest now, where I'm excited for this thing. I don't expect it to be great, but I just really want to see this weirdo Gollum single player, like Lord of the Rings adventure that they got going on here. They delayed this game like multiple times. They had it in this showcase here, and shocking me, even though I probably shouldn't have been shocked by this, they did not have a release date. They said 2023, but we don't have a date for you, so that sucks. You're just gonna have to wait more. This was supposed to be the story trailer. But yeah, what did you think of this trailer? I think I'm really the only one who's actually excited for this thing in like almost an ironic way. But yeah, I don't know. Did this trailer sway you at all to the dark side with Gollum over here?
Such a just. I never ever would have thought like, yeah, coming from games of like Lord of the Rings Conquest, Battle for Middle Earth, all those titles. We're getting the Gollum game. That just seems so peculiar. And so you see the story trailer, it really vindified. I don't know what the term would be. It made Gollum feel like the underdog hero of the entire franchise.
But then, of course, they had like the good versus evil like tagline in there. So it's like you can probably be good Gollum. You could be Smeagol in this or Gollum, I guess. Even though they didn't like gameplay wise, they don't seem to highlight that at all. It's just like something they're saying but not showing. The classic.
Yeah, it was cool to see Gandalf in here. I don't know if we saw him
Young
at all
Gandalf.
before. Young Gandalf. Yeah, and I'm assuming
Gollum's
that's
young too. He's
Radagast.
still got a full mop of hair on there.
thick
It's not a great
hair,
mop
yeah.
of hair, but it's something.
And that's Radagast as well, right? I'm assuming.
Oh, I missed Radagast. Where's Radagast in there?
Wasn't Radagast the guy talking to Gandalf there in that quick scene? Then Gandalf's like, "What did you tell the Dark Lord?"
Oh god, I
I'm
missed
assuming.
I didn't catch that being Radagast, but you got
Unless
a good
it's
eye.
someone else, it very well could be. Like the art style for some of these characters, I definitely am not.
It's a departure from the movies and stuff. Like the elf, they show off this one elf character that seems to be an ally of Gollum, and this is like a very high fantasy elf with the big ears, the very weirdly proportioned face and whatnot, which I actually liked. Like it's obviously not what I'm used to, and I don't necessarily associate that with like, oh, that's a Mirkwood elf or something like that. But I like that they're going for something different. I think the Gollum aesthetic is not amazing, and Gandalf, it's just weird to see Gandalf looking, with black hair and a black beard. It's bizarre. But I am happy that they decided to go this route instead of trying to make it look like a copycat. They're like, I feel like with the visuals, they're trying to make it clear, like, this is our own vision. We're doing our own thing with the story and the setting here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Because this is the big confusion. I will say, visually, I think this is actually the best showing it's had in terms of some of the visuals. Like when they showed what I assume is Rivendell, or like just some of the Mordor locations. Like just the fidelity looked really great. I think some of the character models aren't the best, but like they're not awful either. Art style is a different thing altogether. But I just thought fidelity looked pretty good, and the music was fantastic. So in terms of like the aesthetics, I think they're getting that part of it down. The gameplay, they did not show much of it here. Like they said, the story trailer, and it was pretty much the same thing where it's like Gollum's running from stuff and like jumping on ledges. So it's like the gameplay is probably going to suck in this game. I'm very much expecting that. Hopefully the story and the world can grab me in, or maybe the stealth is fun. I always like a good stealth game. But I think, Taylor, my biggest confusion here was that this is the story trailer. It's what they call it. I watched this trailer multiple times. I could not tell you what the story is supposed to be. Like they're very unclear about what it actually is. I was like, very much, I went back and I was like, okay, I'm listening to this line of dialogue with like full focus, trying to piece it apart. And it's like, they're just saying nothing. They're saying words, but it's like completely meaningless. Where it's like, the only thing I can get from the story is that like some people are trying to catch Gollum. Mm-hmm. And that's it. That's all I could tell you. Like that's not enough of a story hook to like get people in the door. I mean, I'm already in the door. I was in even from like the beginning, just like the concept of this thing. I needed to check it out. But did you feel that too, or is there any element of the story that you're like, oh, I'm actually like, obviously we saw these characters we just talked about, but like in terms of actual story, like what's compelling you, if anything?
I could not agree more. I didn't get anything story wise. Again, the story that I am running with is that this is the ring has come back, and he was kidnapped, and he's 3 lashings away from saying Shire Bagoons,
Bagoons.
Yeah. So I feel like that's where we are in the story at this point. That being said, like it didn't really reveal much, but it definitely seems like it's just this tribulative escape game storyline with Gollum trying to just get out of chaos here. He's got the good forces coming after him, the bad forces. We got to see obviously one of the Nazgul, I believe.
Yeah, the ring wraith or something like that. A very quick shot of that. Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, so there you go. There's Gollum. Don't know when it's coming out, but I'll probably be playing it, and I cannot wait to share with you all. Oh my god, probably how bad this thing is. Also, my thing finally loaded. I have Resident Evil 4 Remake on my list, as well as Starfield, actually. So this episode is my episode here. So I'm feeling good about those 2 picks at the moment. What has Taylor got? Taylor's got Street Fighter 6, Spider-Man 2, Pikmin 4, Forza Motorsport 6, Assassin's Creed Mirage. You got a good list over there.
Yeah, I just need Mirage.
Street Fighter 6 is looking great for those fans. I'm not like that fan, I guess, but for the people that are into that, it seems like this is going to be a big hit. So I think that could be a big numbers for you.
I just have to hope Sony doesn't, like you said, drop Spider-Man 2, Day of Starfield. Then I'm shit out of luck.
Well, I mean, I think the reviews, I don't know if that would really affect the reviews. Maybe like the public opinion, no one's playing it or something like that. But I think the reviewers will be pretty hot on Spider-Man. I think it'd be pretty hard for that one to mess up. Insomniac is just absolutely crushing it right now. Our last topic of the show here, Taylor, is probably a quick one here, but when I was, getting ready for what we're going to talk about this week, I messaged you and I was like, are you a RoboCop fan at all? And I forget what your response was. Your response was like, eh. Like
it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, that's what you said. So there was this game that we'd known about. It's called RoboCop. God, RoboCop Rogue City. I forgot to write the subtitle down. Is it Rogue City? Rogue.
Looks like Rogue City. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. So this is like a RoboCop game, and in this little showcase, they showed like a nice little game, like 5-minute gameplay sequence, where as a RoboCop, you're walking on the street, you're kind of interacting with some riffraff, and then you go into this club and just fuck some people up. And then you go out and drop a parking ticket on a car. So I have never interacted with RoboCop in any way. So I'm just throwing over to you first, even though it's maybe not necessarily one of your top genre or top series. But what did you think about this trailer here?
I'm a sucker for games like this that are very modern, but they do the 80s old school aesthetic. I think Alien Isolation is a prime example of that.
That's a good one.
And I feel like this had that. When you mentioned RoboCop to me, and then you sent the show notes, and I was like, oh, it's an actual game, which totally went over my head before. So when I watched it, I thought we were going to be getting something very simple. But lo and behold, we got like what seemed like a pretty open world, like cyberpunky styled game where he's just cruising around. There's people
Mm-hmm.
walking, like scanning. I'm thinking, holy smokes, this is actually really surprising. There's a lot of like attention here. Now it could be just for the presentation's sake, and it could be
Yeah.
totally just a waste of a title. But I actually have high hopes for this. The humor too of these situations really got me because like come back with a warrant, cops. Okay, goes gets his warrant, all that jazz, comes back, and just the way that they did this innocent comedic humor, like I got your warrant. He's like, well,
Mm-hmm.
I lost my key here. He just kicks him over the staircase, through the door, and down like nuts. And
Mm-hmm.
I want to see more gameplay though. I want to see how you're taking damage because you just hear the pings, the bullets. Like, are you gonna be able to die at all? Like,
I
what's
think there
going
was.
on?
I feel like they showed a bit of a health bar there, or like after the first altercation, I think it was like I forget what the thing was. It was like recombine or something like that, where your character like healed back, I guess. So I'm guessing there is a limit. But you're right. He did seem like a tank. Like you were not behind cover. He was just standing in the doorway, firing as
Mm-hmm.
multiple enemies were just unloading like SMG shots into him. So
Yeah,
it was pretty wild.
I need to see more gameplay, and that's the thing. Like my method of gameplay when I play shooters, I like to move fast and quick. But like RoboCop, he's just walking, and just the way that the gun's moving, like I question it a little bit and how it's gonna feel. But if it feels good, then I could be
Yeah.
swayed.
It's a weird case where the game does look very stiff, but that also seems like it potentially fits the character very well. And you are
Yeah,
this robotic character, and you're supposed to move in this weird C3PO sort of way. So yeah, it weirdly works, but then it's like, well, that might just not be fun to like play the
yeah.
game that controls like that. So yeah, that'll be interesting. But yeah, I mean, I'm similar to you, where I was like blown away by this. Like it looked amazing, just the visuals of this night, this nighttime city, and just the lighting effects and whatnot. And yeah, I have so many questions off this, and maybe some of those answers are out there, and I just haven't dug into them. But like, if this is just like an open world game where you go around like busting crime, that could be interesting if it's as good as this, which I definitely got vibes that like they fine tuned this 5 minute sequence to look fucking amazing, and the
Oh
whole game's
yeah.
not going to be like this. But maybe that's just me being pessimistic. Maybe it truly is that good. But like if that is the case, I feel like I would have a good time just like walking around, like giving people parking tickets and like breaking up riffraff and going into alleyways and like beating up like criminal scum and stuff like that. Like I don't know, that could be a fun time. Like they kind of did that parking ticket thing as a joke, but like if that's just an element to it, that could be interesting. I would say maybe my more anticipation for this, and once again, maybe this info is out there, is that like maybe you go into a level and a level is like 2 blocks or something like that, and it's a couple buildings you can interact with, and then there's kind of set up pedestrians and stuff outside, and there's like events going on, and that could be interesting too, even right, like in almost like a Dishonored, I'll say scale of a level where you can go into this building and there's like a crime, like some gangs doing some crime stuff, and that's what your main objective is. But then like on the outside, there's a couple side quests where you can go bust some parking tickets, or you can go split up this fight, or whatever it is, and like that could be fun too if it's like scaled down in that way. And there's like 10 levels, and each one is like some couple little like mini moments like this. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but yeah, it is one of those things that look too good to be true, and I hope I can be proven wrong on that. It would be really cool to see. Let me just look up who the developer is of this, because maybe that's a good thing to see. Just in terms of what we could expect here. But yeah, while I'm doing it, any other just thoughts on this thing from this showcase here?
Its initial release was June 2023. Interesting. That's pretty quick, actually.
Oh yeah, that is just around the corner.
Yeah, holy smokes. And how like so you knew this was coming out a while ago?
I remember seeing it before. I knew it existed, but I don't think I'd ever even seen like gameplay or anything. So yeah, it's something I knew about peripherally, but like I and maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe I'm making that up. Maybe this is its first announcement, but I think if it's coming out in June, I assume it's been announced before, and it seemed familiar to me. So I guess okay, yeah. So looking at, I mean, the studio's been around a long time. Making all sorts of stuff. They made 101 pony pets, 101 dino pets, 101 bunny pets. I don't know what these fucking 101 pets games were, but they made a bunch of those. What else did they do? 101 shark pets, 1001 blockbusters, the pinball game. Heavy Fire. I don't know what that is. They have quite the. They did a Rambo video game in 2014.
No kidding, eh?
They did Terminator Resistance. Do you know what that game is from
I
2019?
do know that one.
So it's the same
actually.
studio that did that. Do you know anything about that game? Was that a good game?
It was actually something that I wanted to dabble in, but I never got around to it.
I
'Cause, yeah, that
can't
one
remember
came out
hearing anything about
recently.
it. Yeah, it was 2019 on that one.
2019. Yeah.
But like them working on Rambo, them working on Terminator, like it seems like a good fit. I don't know anything about those games in terms of what they are, in terms of how like the quality, or even like are those open worldy things or more level based things. But anyway, the studio has done a ton of shit in their career. They have like 40 games on this list, so I mean, just going off on this mobile market, it seems like potentially, but.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it's again, Resistance was definitely like first person shooter kind of thing, much more
Okay.
fast paced, but I think it was much more like story driven. This seems from what we talked about and what we saw, more open world ish. And Rambo, I have no idea what was going on there, but
Terminator got a 4 out of 10 from IGN,
ooh,
5 out of 10 from Push Square. Okay, not great reviews there. How about Rambo? Oh, wow. A 1 out of 10 from Destructoid, 3 out of 10 from IGN.
you know what? You get kicked back down, you get back up. I like this
True.
team.
Hey, if it doesn't, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Ooh, Giant Bomb nominated Rambo of the worst game of 2014. Okay.
That's motivation right
They
there.
won an
Just
award,
keep at
the
it.
award-winning Rambo
Yeah.
from Giant Bomb. That's a reputable source there, so
Well,
that's
on
hilarious.
this track then of these like classic 80s projects, and I mean sooner or later then I wonder we're going to get to like Predator
Well,
or something.
Yeah, I mean that's probably coming at some point. Just last thing on this studio is that like obviously like they've been around since 2006 and there's like 40 games here, so obviously the math of that is like they were pumping out things. And that's even the case like Rambo, like they had two other games in 2014. In 2019 with Terminator they had another game, and then a couple other games in 2018. Since Terminator they've had one game, Monster Truck game in 2020, and then nothing else since RoboCop. So to me that's almost a good sign of like, okay, they actually spent more time on this. I don't know, maybe they just have a fuck ton of employees and they could do all these things at the same time. But to me, it seems like, okay, at least maybe there's some more time spent on this thing. But obviously, this is not a developer I'm knowledgeable on, so I could take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt here. But yeah, do you hope this studio gets Predator as their next IP, or you want that to be in maybe more reliable hands?
Well, I mean I would always love to see one of my favorite franchises always be graced with more reliable hands, but I will take what I can get because those reliable hands probably are picking and choosing which franchises they want to take over. I don't think Predator is definitely on the hot plate for anyone these days, but that being said,
What, 2 Alien games on the go, or Dark Descent, and then is there another one? Maybe just that one. But if that pops off, I could see there being like even just Predator DLC for that, or
that's
maybe
true.
Maybe they make another similar game to that or something like that.
That's true. That's very, very true. If RoboCop does great, I'd love to see them tackle something like a Predator. I think you could have a lot of fun with a title like that, and the kind of sense that they're doing it. So as long as like the ratings go up, because if we went like that 1 out of 10, then the 4 out of 10, and then RoboCop does, hopefully like a 6 out of 10, then maybe the Predator one will be a 10 out of 10. Who knows?
It's true. Sometimes it just happens like that. All right. That was RoboCop, and that was everything. Anything else you want to mention here, Taylor? This is a fun, weird mix match show of all sorts of different topics. It's a good time though.
Yeah, no, it was a good time. Yeah, I can't think of anything else.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, have you talked about your resurgence? How you're enjoying it so far?
My resurgence.
Yeah, the resurgence, the Warzone resurgence.
Oh, I mean, I just mentioned it when we did the Hogwarts Legacy review. Just that quick shout out at the beginning.
Yeah, cool.
I guess I haven't played in a couple weeks here, or didn't play this weekend, so I don't know if there's anything new in there, but that's been a great time.
Yeah,
So
it's
much
been
fun.
pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, that's going to be it for today. Next week, I think Kirkland will be joining me for some more topics and whatnot. If you have any questions, thoughts, whatever for Dishonored, we're doing that retrospective this week, so that's very exciting. And if not, all sorts of stuff on Patreon. Once again, John Wick retrospective, Dishonored, Dark Messiah, all sorts of good stuff. And if not, we'll see you again here next week, same time, same place. Have a good one, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.